and welcome here to TalkFCB and welcome to the Champions League. It's coming live from Stamford Bridge on Tuesday. Barca will head to London to face Chelsea, and it is such an important game. This is an absolutely massive game, and in my opinion, it's huge for both teams. We're going to be looking into exactly why that is, and of course, importantly, how are the teams going to look? How is Hansi Flick going to line up in this game? Are we going to see any changes from the weekend in terms of our approach? Will things be any different in this game? I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited for it. And I thank you indeed to all of you here for joining me on the channel. So come on and let's do this. Because indeed, guys, at 8 p.m. local time on Tuesday, Barca will indeed be kicking off against Chelsea live from Stamford Bridge. And I would just say, I don't feel as though Stamford Bridge is the most intimidating of places to go. In terms of the capacity there, by modern stadium and by the biggest clubs in the world standard, it's actually quite a modest sort of capacity. However, it does have some history behind it. Chelsea have had real success here. They've certainly won titles, many titles over the years, including, of course, the Champions League on multiple occasions. And what you'd have to say, though, coming into this game, is that one game in particular, or even one goal, springs to mind. We come here remembering the magic, the genius, the last gasp goal from Andres Iniesta that was massive in taking Barca to the Champions League final. So certainly that is going to be in all of our minds. We've got to use that spirit now to propel the Barca of today. Can we come here and win? Can we get a massive victory for confidence, for momentum, for belief in our idea this season? That is the aim. Because in terms of our opponents right here in Chelsea, I think it's quite interesting, first of all, when you look at their Champions League campaign so far. The opening game there, they lost 3-1 to Bayern Munich. Then they followed that up with a narrow win over Benfica. They were brilliant against Ajax, but at the same time, everybody is smashing Ajax these days, unfortunately. And then they got a really poor draw, really, against Karabakh. So I think for Chelsea so far, it's been an indifferent Champions League campaign. It's been a bit of an inconsistent one, and the interesting thing about it is you could say those exact same things about Barca's campaign, because there is a reason why Chelsea and Barca are literally right next to each other in the Champions League standings. Both teams there have just 7 points from 4 games, and Barca, they've been exactly the same. We've had highs, we've had bad lows. We had a really concerning game there away at Club Brugge. We got sort of played off the park in the second half by PSG. So for Barca here, there's a lot to prove as well. And when I look at Chelsea, when I look at Barca this season, there is actually a lot of similarities. Both teams right now, interestingly, are second in their respective leagues. But at the same time, you'd say that they were second. In Barca's case, they're now within touching distance of first in Real Madrid. And yet, I think both of them, they've been a bit underwhelming at times. They've been a bit inconsistent. And to be honest, they haven't shown their best level. I think both teams here are capable of more. I think both teams here have lacked a little bit of confidence at times and have really been knocked by a few poor results. And yet, they are in great positions. Both of these teams can still go on and have outstanding seasons. They are both in contention here for everything that's available to them. That's why this game is big. That is why this is a colossal game on both sides. We've got to win this. We have got to come here, show what we can do, stand up and deliver. But if we do indeed take a little bit of a closer look here at what Chelsea have been doing this season in terms of their results, we spoke yesterday that they did get that 2-0 win at the weekend over Burnley. Before that, they played against Wolves at home. And again, these are nice fixtures for Chelsea right now. Two teams there languishing in the relegation zone. Then, like I say, they got that poor draw against Karabakh. They played away at Tottenham. Tottenham were absolutely dreadful in that game. Really poor. Booed off by their own fans. They played Wolves again in the Cup. And then they lost to Sunderland at home before that there. And you can quite clearly see that Chelsea have got pretty nice fixtures. They seem to play teams, and obviously this is not their doing, it's just by chance, but they play teams when they are struggling. Nottingham Forest there, they were having all of their coaching managerial problems at that time. They came up against Liverpool. I mean, who isn't beating Liverpool these days? They lost at home there to Brighton. So actually, they've had a few losses at home along the way. They lost to Man United as well. That was really disappointing for them. And again, at the start of the season, they're playing teams there like West Ham. They were in really, really poor form at that time. They played Fulham at home. They played Brentford away there. So Chelsea, I think, nobody really knows how good they are. And that is why this game here, it's going to be a big, big one for them. It's going to show how good they can be. Can they mix it with the best of them? I mean, we saw them at the Club World Cup. They went all the way in that tournament. And again, even after they won that, it was almost like, well, does that really matter? How much weight does that actually hold? So I think the jury is very much still out on Chelsea, and they will be looking at this game as a massive opportunity, as a real point to prove to the entire footballing world. And we've got to be ready for that. Now, in terms of Barca, though, heading into this game, I do think the weekend was so important. I really, really do. Because, before the international break, there was a lot of noise around this team, struggling for confidence, struggling for real belief in what we were doing. But I think the weekend, it just brought everybody back together again. That's what we need here. We need to go back to playing as a team, pressing as one, closing down together, putting in the work. And, of course, that defensive line is going to be so important here. So good to recapture some real confidence back at our home on Saturday against Athletic Club. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on that defensive line, because like we spoke about in yesterday's video, there were a few signs against Athletic that Barca were just trialling a few things, maybe taking a few steps back, maybe not playing with such a high-risk strategy at all times, basically picking your moments. You don't have to sit on the halfway line for the entirety of the game. There's a time to push up, there's a time to really squeeze and press, and there's also a time to drop off. You don't always have to be ultra high risk. So I'm interested to see in this game, just like we saw away at Newcastle, are we going to be a little bit more pragmatic? Now, I don't expect the Hansi Flick team to ever sit deep. That's not going to happen. And we don't really want that to happen. We want to be brave. We want to be bold. We want to be going on the offensive here. We have belief that we can come here and win. But at the same time, just take caution. Play with your head. Play smart. Make good decisions out there. Look after the ball. And the work rate's got to be on point here. We need every single player buying in, pressing, winning the ball back, and then hurting Chelsea. When we get our opportunities, as always, you've got to be clinical in front of goal. Now, in terms of injuries and the very latest team news ahead of this one, starting first of all with Chelsea, they have a major blow. And to be honest, he's had injuries throughout the season so far. But Cole Palmer, he is also going to be out for this one here against Barca. And quite extraordinarily, he did that while stubbing his toe at home. So that ruled him out of this game. There will be no Cole Palmer, which is a blow. He's one of their most influential attacking players there. But looking here at the potential Chelsea lineup, there is a lot of quality there. There is a lot of good players. Caicedo in midfield is an absolutely phenomenal player in that area there. Does so many things well. It makes it all look very, very easy in that area of the pitch. Yesterday we spoke about the quality of Enzo Fernandez, and certainly out wide there, it could be anyone with Chelsea. That they have about 80 different players that they could play in those wide areas. It could be Garnacho in tomorrow night's games. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I still think in the number 9 area, they are lacking though. At times they've gone with João Pedro, at times he's been a little bit more withdrawn. They've also gone with Liam Delap up front as well. I still think Chelsea are trying to find that number 9 formula. It's a position that they have struggled a bit with over the past few seasons, but there is quality there. There is quality in their team, and throughout that bench as well, they will have opportunities to change the game as it progresses. We have to be ready. But then on the side of Barca, the great news for us is that Marcus Rashford is 100% recovered there from a little bit of illness that kept him out of the weekend's game, and also a few training sessions as well. So he's been back now, trained perfectly fine for 2 days in a row. He's all ready to go. And I think again for Rashford, it's just like we said against Newcastle, there's an opportunity for him here. It's a ground that he knows very well. He's very used to playing away at Chelsea. It's something there that he's experienced many times before. He scored scored plenty of goals against Chelsea as well, so it's somebody here who can come into this game and already have that belief, have that know-how, have that confidence. We saw it really come good against Newcastle. That was the game that really did elevate Rashford. It made him believe that he could be a success at Barca, that Newcastle game. So let's see now, with all of that confidence, that he's really gone from strength to strength now at Barca. Let's see him against Chelsea. Let's see what he's capable of doing back on English soil. But in terms of the starting lineup here for Barca, it is going to be Joan Garcia in goal, and I cannot overstate here how important he is. You know, it's so key in a game like this, the Champions League. There's going to be pressure on Barca. You know, there's going to be balls coming into the box. There's going to be set pieces to deal with. Chelsea are going to put the pressure on at times. You need a goalkeeper who has belief in themselves and who can give confidence to those ahead of them. He can be commanding, and he will help us through this game. Make no mistake about that. And then the back four, I wouldn't expect too many changes from the weekend. The only one really would probably be Ronald Araujo coming in to replace Gerard Martin. I don't expect Martin to start in a game like this, but I think Araujo probably would have started at the weekend against Athletic, but it was that long flight back from Uruguay. So I expect the defence here to be quite settled, which is good. You know, we want these players to be playing with each other regularly, gaining that understanding, and ultimately looking a little bit more solid in that area. But then, of course, in midfield, Frenkie de Jong, he is back. He missed the game at the weekend with suspension. We did miss him, but it's great that he's back here for a big Champions League game. He was one of those players, don't forget, against Newcastle, who was extraordinary. He was absolutely outstanding, of course, alongside of Pedri. Now, unfortunately, we will not be able to call upon him, and that is a real shame. You know, this is the kind of game you want to see him in. You know, I think you want to see all the best players in these kinds of games, but it's a shame there that Pedri will not make it in time. But it's good that we're not taking any risk. You know, at the end of the day, this is just a league phase game. It's not the knockout stage. It's not a final. At the end of the day, if Pedri's not ready, he should not be playing right now. And alongside Frenkie then, let's go with Eric Garcia. For me, he's got to be there. He has to be in the team. His performance at the weekend was outstanding. And not only defensively, you know, you think of Eric Garcia in the midfield, he's going to be breaking up play, he's going to be winning the ball back, but he wasn't just doing that, he was doing it high up the field. You know, he was winning it back in such fantastic areas in the final third, and he was creating danger. That is absolutely fantastic. So for me, he's got to be there alongside Frenkie, and I like the look of that midfield there. I like the look of the solidity of it. I think the two can play well together, and I would be excited to see that combination up against Chelsea's midfield, which will be a very, very key battle, because then ahead of those two, I'd play Fermin Lopez. And for me, you know, Fermin has to be in the team. He's another one who is playing himself into this position. Again, he scored at the weekend. He scores very, very regularly for a midfield player. And in this kind of game here, against a Premier League opponent, you're going to get those kinds of chances, you know, in and around the penalty area, making those kinds of runs, being aggressive in the way that he plays in the final third. That's what you want in this kind of away Champions League fixture. So for me, I would play with Fermin Lopez. I would have him in the 10. And unfortunately, that means Olmo drops out. But at the end of the day, I think he's kind of made his own bed on this one. I just don't think you could actually include him here based on his performance. The only reason why he'd be in this starting lineup was because of his name, because of the price tag that it took to bring him in. At the end of the day, he has not done enough recently to justify being in there ahead of Fermin or ahead of Eric Garcia. On form alone, Dani Olmo would have to miss out in the starting lineup, in my opinion. Now, he can come on. He can try and make an impact. I'd love to see him take a game by the scruff of the neck and give us something, but we haven't seen that kind of hunger. We haven't seen that kind of clinical touch from him in recent games. So for me, Olmo would drop out, and I don't really think that he could have too many complaints. Over on the right side then, of course, it's going to be Lamine Yamal. Make no mistake about that. And the thing about Yamal is, he's always going to be dangerous. I mean, even in the game against Athletic, when you were thinking, oh, is he a bit quiet today? You know, is he going to get too much involved in the game? You blink, and he's beating 3 players. He's doing an outside-the-foot assist. You know, he's capable of doing absolutely anything. And in this kind of game, you need that magic. You need somebody who, if the game is a bit tight, if you're cancelling each other out, one player of his quality, they can make the ultimate difference. But the big question is over on the left wing. Now, who is it going to be there? Could it be Ferran Torres? Again, as we saw against Athletic Club, he scored 2 goals, had a good game. You know, I do think he had great chances in that game. You know, I wouldn't say it was a spectacular performance from him, but at the end of the day, he is scoring goals. He is contributing right now. But in my opinion, if he's fit, I'd play Rashford. If he's ready to play, I would put him out there because, I think the game suits him. I think this kind of game, this kind of occasion, it's one where Rashford can really, really enforce his ability. We saw it against Newcastle. That was a game where he took the game upon himself to drive Barca into the lead. So I would play Rashford if possible because, again, I don't think Rafinha is going to be ready to start. I thought maybe he was a bit further along than he was. He only came on for 10 minutes against Athletic Club, so I don't really see him starting in this game. But for sure, you want to bring him off the bench. You want him to be involved in some capacity here, and I'd love it if he could start. He's the kind of guy you want in the Champions League. He was influential last season in the Champions League for Barca, but let's wait and see here just how far along he is and how much he can play in this game. And then at number 9, I want Lewandowski. I know Ferran has been scoring. I know there's certainly goals in his game, but again, in a big European game like this, start with Lewandowski. He is scoring goals. He is looking better. He's looking a bit sharper. He's putting away the chances. He's feeling good right now. He's very, very motivated and hungry right now, Lewandowski. And just play him in this game. And hopefully he will bag you 1, 2, maybe even 3 goals. Who knows? But this can be a strong team for Barca. We have our own quality. We know what Chelsea can do. We're aware of their quality. We know this is not an easy game for us. But these are the games that you want to compete in. These are the games where you want to put down a marker. Come here and win. Come here and show that we are back. That we are the Barca of last season. Let's show that hunger. Let's show that drive and that work ethic. And let's win this game. Because in terms of my score prediction in this one, honestly, I wasn't far away at the weekend. I was shocked. I said we'd keep a clean sheet. We actually did. I said 3-0. It ended up being 4. So not too bad. Maybe here we could get something cooking in this one. I am going to go with Barca 3, Chelsea 1. I believe we may be about to witness, and I really hope this happens, Barca's best performance of the season. Let's whisper that. Could it be Barca's best performance of the season here? Let's all hope so. We don't want to speak too soon. We don't want to get too excited. But I just think right now we are looking a bit better. We're looking a bit improved. And I just hope we kick on. Let's not fall back now. Let's not give up the ground that we've earned with that promising victory at the weekend and all of those good feelings that we got from that. Let's make it special. Let's make Stamford Bridge our playground. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. What are your predictions? Let me know what you think the score will be. Let me know how we should line up in this game. And do you think this could be a special night for Barca? I will catch you after the game. And of course, throughout the day maybe. Keep an eye on both here and more TalkFCB. It's all going to be happening. But thank you indeed for the support. For all of you here tuning in. But until next time, as always, Vesca, El Barça.